The wind howled across the dry plains that evening, carrying dust like whispers of forgotten stories, and right then, something strange happened at the edge of Caleb's failing ranch. You ever get that feeling something is about to change everything completely? Well, that's exactly where this story begins, and trust me, you'll want to stay until the end. Caleb stood by the broken fence, staring at land that once fed generations. Now it barely fed hope, let alone a future worth holding on to anymore. Cattle were thin, the well was drying, and debts kept piling higher each day. He clenched his jaw, wondering how much longer he could fight this losing battle. Because out here, in the unforgiving Wild West, weakness meant losing everything you loved. And just when he thought things couldn't get worse, a figure appeared. A lone woman, walking straight toward the ranch like she belonged there. She didn't look like trouble, but she didn't look ordinary either, not even clothes. Her clothes were worn, but her eyes carried something sharp, something knowing, something powerful. Caleb watched her approach, cautious, hand resting near his holster just in case. Now you might be thinking, why would a stranger walk into a struggling ranch uninvited? That's exactly what Caleb was thinking too, and he wasn't wrong to be careful. The woman stopped a few steps away, studying the land like she could read its story. She didn't ask for water, food, or even shelter like most travelers would. Instead, she asked a question that caught Caleb completely off guard. She said, "How long before this land gives up on you completely?" And just like that, everything changed in a single breath. Now that question hit deeper than any insult Caleb had ever heard before. Because deep down, he already knew the answer, even if he refused to admit it. The ranch was dying, slowly but surely, and there was nothing he could do. Or at least, that's what he believed until that moment right there. He narrowed his eyes, unsure whether to be angry or curious instead. So he asked her straight, "What do you know about this land anyway?" The woman didn't flinch, didn't hesitate, didn't even blink under his stare. She simply knelt down, grabbed a handful of dry soil, and examined it carefully. Like it was speaking to her in a language only she understood clearly. And when she stood back up, her answer would change everything forever. She told him the land wasn't dead, it was just misunderstood and mistreated over time. Now that might sound strange, but hear me out, because this is where things get interesting. She explained that the soil had lost balance, not life, and that was fixable. Caleb almost laughed, because he had heard hopeful lies before, too many times already. But something in her voice made him pause, made him listen just a little longer. She spoke about water channels, rotation, and methods he had never heard before. Not like the usual ranch talk passed down from fathers and grandfathers over decades. This was different, almost like science mixed with instinct and experience combined together. And for the first time in months, Caleb felt something unfamiliar rising inside him. Not fear, not anger, but something dangerously close to hope again. Now hope can be a risky thing when you've already lost so much before. But Caleb had nothing left to lose, and that's what made him listen. He asked her what she wanted in return for all this knowledge. Because nobody gives something valuable for free out here, not in this world. The woman smiled slightly, like she expected that question from the very beginning. She said she didn't want money, or land, or even a place to stay. All she wanted was a chance to prove that she could save the ranch. And if she failed, she would leave without asking for anything at all. Now that kind of confidence is either foolish, or it's something much stronger. And Caleb decided to take that risk, even if it broke him completely. The next morning, everything started changing in ways Caleb never expected before. The woman, whose name was Eliza, got to work before the sun even rose. She mapped the land, studied slopes, and marked places Caleb never noticed mattered. Now you've got to understand, Caleb had lived there his entire life. Yet somehow, she was seeing things he had been blind to for years. She directed him to dig channels, redirect water, and adjust grazing patterns carefully. At first, it felt pointless, like rearranging chairs on a sinking ship. But Eliza moved with certainty, like she had done this many times before. And slowly, very slowly, the land began to respond in subtle ways. Not miracles, not yet, but signs that something was starting to shift. Days turned into weeks, and those small changes started becoming impossible to ignore. Grass began returning in patches where nothing had grown for months previously. The cattle looked stronger, more active, like they sensed the change as well. Even the air felt different, carrying moisture instead of endless dry dust. Now I know what you're thinking, could it really be that simple? No, it wasn't simple, but it was possible with the right knowledge applied properly. Caleb watched in disbelief as his dying ranch slowly came back to life. And with every passing day, his respect for Eliza grew deeper and stronger. Because she wasn't guessing, she knew exactly what she was doing all along. And that kind of certainty is rare in a world full of doubt. But just when things started looking better, trouble came riding in fast. A group of land buyers arrived, men who had been watching Caleb struggle closely. They offered to buy the ranch for cheap, expecting him to finally give up. Now here's the thing about desperate times, they attract the wrong kind of people. These men saw opportunity where Caleb saw survival and hope starting to grow again. They didn't believe in the land, they believed in profit and control only. Caleb hesitated because the offer could clear his debts instantly and safely. But something inside him refused to let go, not after coming this far already. Eliza stood beside him, calm but firm, like she had expected this moment. And what she said next would decide everything moving forward from there. She told Caleb that selling now would erase everything they had just rebuilt together. That the land was finally healing, and it needed time to fully recover. But more than that, she told him he needed to believe in himself again. Not just in the ranch, but in his ability to protect and grow it. Now that's a powerful thing, when someone sees strength in you that you forgot existed. Caleb looked at the buyers, then at the land, then back at Eliza again. And in that moment, the decision became clearer than it had ever been before. He refused the offer, standing his ground for the first time in months. The buyers weren't happy, not even close, but they eventually rode away. And just like that, Caleb chose hope over fear for the very first time. From that day forward, the ranch transformed into something even stronger than before. Eliza continued teaching Caleb everything she knew about restoring the land properly. He learned fast, driven by determination and a renewed sense of purpose. The ranch didn't just survive, it began to thrive beyond expectations completely. Neighbors started noticing, asking questions, wondering how he turned things around so quickly. But Caleb knew the truth, and he never tried to take credit alone. Because without Eliza, none of this would have ever been possible at all. And here's the part that makes this story even more interesting to hear. Eliza wasn't just a traveler, she had a past connected to land restoration deeply. A secret skill passed down through generations, almost lost to time itself. She revealed that her family had spent decades studying land, soil, and balance carefully. Not in books, but through experience, observation, and hard-earned lessons learned. She had wandered from place to place, helping land that others had given up on. Never staying long, never asking for much in return from anyone she helped. But something about Caleb's ranch made her stop and stay a little longer. Maybe it was the land, or maybe it was Caleb himself, who needed saving too. Because sometimes, it's not just the land that needs healing, it's the people. And that's exactly what happened here, in ways neither of them expected. Caleb wasn't just rebuilding a ranch, he was rebuilding his own belief again. And that kind of change lasts far longer than any season ever could. Seasons passed, and the ranch became one of the strongest in the region. Grass was thick, cattle were healthy, and water flowed steadily through the land. What once looked like failure now stood as proof that knowledge can change everything. People traveled from far away just to learn from Caleb and Eliza together. And they shared what they knew, never forgetting where it all began originally. Now think about that for a second, from the edge of collapse to success. All because one person showed up with the right skill at the right time. It makes you wonder how many opportunities we miss because we stop believing too soon. Caleb never forgot that lesson, not even for a single day afterward. And neither should we, if we're being honest with ourselves here. So if you've ever felt like giving up when things aren't going your way, remember this story. Remember how close everything came to being lost forever. Sometimes the answer isn't working harder, it's working differently with the right knowledge. Sometimes help comes in unexpected ways, from people you never saw coming before. And sometimes, all it takes is one decision to change everything completely. Caleb chose to trust, to believe, and to take a risk when it mattered most. And because of that, his world didn't just survive, it transformed entirely. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in his place? Would you have sold the ranch, or taken the same risk he did? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below right now. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that hope isn't gone yet. Because out here, and in life, the right knowledge can change everything. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story very soon.